Hello, welcome to DnT Tech Reviews. Today we're going to give you a step-by-step guide for noobs on how to build your own computer. You will need hard drives, assorted fans, a CPU cooler, a video card, a motherboard, a CPU, RAM, a CD drive, a power supply, and a case or enclosure. The first step you're going to want to do is completely gut your case.
So we're going to take out the side panel, and especially your front panel, because whenever you go to put in things like your DVD drive or hard drive, it's going to give you all kinds of headaches. So it's better just to get all the stuff out of the way, and then put it back on later.
You kind of have to be rough with it sometimes, but
it's probably not going to break unless it's a badly made case, and don't buy badly made cases, because it's always important to make sure you have a guard cap to protect your side panels when they're not in use.
Hard drives. My case has a toolless design, so all you have to do for this is just put the hard drive in, slide it up, lock it in place, and then lock it in. The next step you're going to want to do is install your optical drive. This is also a toolless design. So you just... takes a little...
They don't always want to go in very well, so if it takes a little bit of effort, just don't be afraid to wiggle it. These things are pretty durable.
Takes a little manhandling. And there we go. It's in. The next step is to install the power supply. This usually goes into the bottom of the case. Some of them are top mounted. In my case, it's bottom mounted. So what you want to do, put that in, just push it all the way back, and on the back over here you want to line it up with the screw holes. So I'm going to line that up. Where are my screws?
Power supply screws are almost always going to be pretty short screws with a hex head and kind of not really fine threads, but finer than like a fan screw. So here you are. These. Most power supplies are going to have a fan, and whenever you have a bottom mounted power supply, like in this case, you're going to want to have your fan on the bottom so it'll pull air up from outside the case and then just exhaust it out the back. Otherwise your power supply is going to be cooling with hot air, and that's not good.
Alright, power supply is mounted. Now, what you're going to want to do in most cases,
No pun intended.
in most cases, they usually, as far as cable management goes, have a hole right through here, and that is for this giant octopus of cabling. But what you want to do is you want to wiggle that way back into there and just hide all of these cables. Not only does it look better to have all your cables in the back panel, it also helps with airflow. Okay, now that that's done, we'll move on to the next step. The next step is to install the CPU. I have an Intel i5-2500K here. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to pull up this pin and lift it back. That will open up the slot. Now, on almost all CPUs they have a little arrow there. What you want to do is line that arrow up with the little arrow here. You can't see it on the camera, but there is an arrow there. You're going to have to look for it to make sure you get it right. But with Intel CPUs, you just pop it in. You don't have to do anything else. Then you close this, bring down the rod, put it under the fold, and you're done.
Okay. So in this step, what we're going to do is you're going to take your CPU, or your thermal grease, which in this case I'm using Zalman ZM-STG2. You can buy it off of FrozenCPU.com. I'd recommend it. It's pretty good stuff. What you're going to do is, there's lots of arguments over how different ways to do this, but what I like to do personally is just very, very gently squeeze in the plunger, because sometimes it likes to spurt out, but not with this stuff. You're just going to get a very tiny bead and spread it like that. And then you're going to take another tiny bead and go like that. The reason I like to do it this way is the top of the CPU isn't actually part of the CPU, it's just a metal heat spreader they put on top of the chip. The actual chip is right under that spot right there, so it's the most important place to have your thermal grease. So whenever you do it this way, you're guaranteed to get a good spread in that one spot, at least that one spot, and for most of the CPU itself. So after you do that, you're going to install your heatsink.
Or CPU cooler, whatever you want to call it.
This part is always fun. So what you're going to want to do is take your back plate and line it up with the back of your CPU, the holes right there. Then take your heatsink, get it right there. You're going to want to line the holes up and push it down as flat as you possibly can, because that will spread the thermal grease out really well. Sometimes I like to wiggle the heatsink around a little bit to get a good spread on it, but you don't really have to, because it'll be good enough just from tightening it down. Now you're going to take these little bolts right here, well not bolts, they're lock nuts, and screw it on to the back of your CPU cooler. They're not great with words.
These can just be hand tightened for now, while you're just putting it on, but then you can tighten them up later. And you really want these kind of tight,
because how tight they are determines how much contact you're going to have between your heatsink and your CPU, exactly. Which you want as much of as possible.
Right. That's true.
Alright, now you take your screwdriver and tighten it the rest of the way. This screwdriver is really a little bit too small, but it'll work. This one's already on about as tight as it'll go. Not sure what's wrong with this one right here. It's weird. A lot of times you're going to have to want to wiggle around your heatsink a bit, because especially whenever you're installing like a water block for a liquid cooling loop, it's not going to want to go in all the way. So you have to kind of wiggle it around to get the screws all the way out, so you're actually tightening it all the way down.
Right. So, there you go. That part is installed. We'll put on the fans after we have this into the case.
Yes.
The next step is to mount the motherboard inside of the case. What you're going to want to do, if yours doesn't already have them in, is put in these motherboard risers. What these do is they keep the motherboard raised up from the case to keep accidental shorts from happening if you have a metal case. So what you're going to do is you're going to take these and put them in the holes corresponding with your form factor. In my case, it's ATX.
Typically, your case will come with a manual that says which screws to, which holes to put the standoffs in.
Right. So now we put in the motherboard, and we line up the screws as best as we can right now.
And make sure before you put your motherboard in that you put in the part right here.
Yeah, it's the I/O shield that just pops in.
Yeah.
You don't have to have it, but it's recommended.
Just because it makes life easier whenever you're hooking things up.
Yes, and it keeps dust from building up. So, what we want to do is we want to take motherboard screws, which are these tiny little screws right here. They're just real tiny, real short, and it takes 9 of them for a normal ATX board.
And typically you're going to want to make sure you don't use a magnetic screwdriver during this part.
Right. Now I've got my long surgeon screwdriver, which is good because it's hard to get down into places. So, I'll take this, put it in the hole. You can tell which holes they are because they have, they have a circle of solder around it,
which
to
is
keep
to help.
everything grounded.
Yeah.
Oops, that was true. So, I'm going to just get the screw. You won't be able to see it.
Yeah, I can't get it in the shot.
But you just want to get it a little started with your fingers, or just get it in the hole. Then with a screwdriver.
And make sure that you don't over tighten them, because if you get it in too tight and you start twisting the motherboard riser, you're liable to strip out the inside of it, and then that's going to be a big problem because it's not going to go in right.
Alright, so I'm going to get the corners first, so I get everything lined up. These can sometimes be finicky.
Yeah.
But
occasionally you'll have to put some pressure on one side of the motherboard to get the screw holes to line up.
You might just want to zoom out because you're not going to be able to see me.
Yeah.
Now that our motherboard screws are in, we're going to install our heatsink fans. You can always tell which direction a fan is blowing is by these supports that it's mounted to. On this side, this is where the air comes in. So all the air will be blowing out this way. Now, since we have the exhaust this way, that's the direction we want the exhaust to come out of, we're going to mount the fans like this. These little noodly fan things are really useful to get them off, but they're not always the best to get on, but I like them.
They're like these little rubber pins that just sort of stick through the fan hole.
I call them fan noodles.
Yeah, you have to pull them all the way through, and then there's a little thing that just stops it in place.
This is generally just a Thermaltake Frio design. They don't use it on anything else. I've never seen anything with this.
Generally, you're just going to have like a clip or some fan screws. The Zigmatech S1283 has a weird one. It's got like a pin that you slide between the fins and then clip your fan onto it that way.
So there's one. Now, for the other.
And make sure you have them blowing through the heatsink, not like towards each other or away from each other.
Right. They want to be going the same direction. You have good airflow. These are extremely strong fans. I think there's something around 120 cubic feet per minute, which is really good. I mean, even 70 or 80 is really good.
Yeah.
On the downside, these are pretty loud.
Yeah, this is one of the loudest air heat sinks I've ever heard, but it definitely gets its job done.
Oh yeah. Plus, if you get it on Newegg as a shell shocker like I did, you can get it for 35 bucks. But that's a pretty rare occasion. However, if you do manage to get that,
definitely go for it.
Definitely go for it. If not, the Cooler Master Hyper 212 Plus
is also very good.
It's also very good, and that one's usually a low price.
Another one to keep your eye open for is the Cooler Master GTV6, which is about the same performance as this one.
Okay. Now, with this heatsink, we mounted it upside down, but it's symmetrical, so
all you have to do is just pop off a little clip right here.
Pop off this thing. This is just for aesthetics.
It also looks pretty cool without it.
Oh yeah. It still has the logo and everything. That's just a little mini review of this. Just because I like the free. Okay, so there is the monster of a heatsink. Our next step is to install the RAM. I'm using G-Scale Ripjaws right here, 1866. It's a great year. But what you want to do is you want to line up the little notch with the notch inside of the slot. You want to pull these pins back. This one doesn't pull on mine, but these pins go back. I'm using the blue slot because I can't fit the RAM in the black slot with these.
That's the thing to watch out for. If you're getting a big tower heatsink for air cooling, you're going to try to find low-profile RAM like a G-Skill Aries.
But you just want to push it in until it pops in place like that. So for the second stick, same thing. Push on both sides.
Sometimes you'll have to get pretty forceful with it, but just make sure you don't like start twisting it or anything and you're good.
Now it's installed. RAM's good. Our next step is to install the video card. I'm using a AMD 6970. This is a giant card. Yours might not be this big. This is
one of the biggest cards you can get.
One of them. But yeah, this is how you do it. On your PCI Express slots, it usually has some sort of latch. If not, it just has a clip, and that is for that little thing.
So you're going to want to line it up with that.
Yes, you're going to want to line it up. Now, on the back part, mine has a nifty little toolless design, just like the rest of the case. But what you're gonna want to do is pop these out. Mine are kind of welded in.
Yeah, once you get them out,
they're break them out.
Not reusable.
Right.
That's one of the things we don't really like about this case. In most cases, those are going to be reusable.
Right. So what you want to do is you want to line up the socket. Usually the fans are pointing down. I've yet to see one where they point up on your video card. So you're going to want to line it up with the socket. There we go. And then just give it a light push. There you go. Locked in. Now, the back part, you can usually put a screw here, but mine's toolless, so mine just lock in place like that. There you go. Secure.
And we'll come back to it in a minute, but occasionally you're going to have little power sockets right here. Make sure you plug those in.
Right.
Alright.
Next step, we're going to install our case fans. This is just a Coolmax fan. Nothing special, just a Molex fan. I'm going to run the wire through this tiny hole back here. We'll get to this hole in a second whenever we're doing the wiring. But you want to run it through the back just like all the rest of your cables. And you're going to put it in this slot back here. Let me move my controller, that fan, get out of here. And you're going to want to line it up with your holes. Now, fan screws. Fan screws are fairly, these are fan screws. They're fairly big screws. They have really big threads to cut into the plastic pretty much.
Fans are not threaded.
Fans are not threaded. But you use a threaded screw for it. So, you want to line up the holes. And you want to get it in. Probably going to need more than just my fingers. It's very finicky because I've never used a fan screw with this fan. I was using wood screws up until now.
They got the job done, but
they got the job done. It just looked bad.
Yeah.
But
here, I'll hold the light with my shoulder and then hold the fan in place with my.
Actually, I think I might have it.
Really?
Yes. It's crooked, but I think I can straighten it out with a screwdriver.
Yeah. Usually
the screwdriver went. Can you hand me the screwdriver? Possibly.
If you could see how ridiculous the position I'm in right now is, you'd probably be laughing at me.
Okay. So you have to.
Usually have to get pretty
aggressive
with them because they do not ever want to go in.
It's like threading a needle with a sausage. I just stripped that screw very badly. But yeah, try and avoid that.
Just make sure you push really hard into the screw.
Yes.
Do it so you're less likely to slip out and strip it.
Right. Just grab all the screws you need.
And we're just going to go ahead and cut because it's pretty much the same thing from here on out. Just go from corner to corner at first because that will make the other two screws line up.
Yes. Our next step is for the top fans. These are Zigmatech fans. They're pretty nice. These just go in the top, just like the back fan, except the screws go in the top. I'm going to use the same hole I did before. It's way back here, tiny hole, but you can fit a Molex through it.
Which is one nice part about this case.
That's one nice thing. Not all cases have this hole, because not all cases have cable management.
And with those, you have to get pretty improv'd.
Yeah,
because that's totally a word.
maybe, just maybe, I can get this through. Cable management is all an art form. Some people have it, some people are me. So, you want to do the same thing. You want to line up the holes, make sure the air is blowing out on your top fans. And you want to take your fan screws, just like before, and you want to just screw them in.
And we're going to go ahead and cut this again, because it'd be kind of silly for us to show you all 4 screws.
8.
Oh yeah, 8, because we're going to do that
We're going to do this fan too, so that'll be exactly the same.
Alright, so both of the top fans are now screwed in. So we're going to go ahead and put the top panel back on. What we're going to do that is you're going to take your top panel here and get the cable spaghetti through that hole in the top right there.
I'm going to go ahead and get it through the back.
Yeah, you're going to go ahead and stick it out the back side of the case. You'll see why we stick everything into the back side of the case later.
Used or unused, you just want to get them out of the way.
Yeah. And if they're unused, in some cases you can even cut them off, but yeah. I don't really suggest that because...
just in case you might need them someday.
Yeah.
Or if it's this case, I would just recommend not getting it.
Just recommend not getting this case.
Just not at all. Okay, now the next step is to attach the top. It's not fully attached. Well,
that's how we usually do it.
That's usually how this one goes on. Oh, it's not all the way up. There we go. It's on. Now we're going to be installing the front fan on the case. What I have to do on mine is remove the hard drive cage. If you can't do that, you might have to take out your hard drives.
Though not every case you get is going to actually have a front panel fan, but most of the good ones do.
Right. So, this, same thing, different place. Want to be blowing out with it.
Or in with it.
In with it, yeah. Out, yeah. So,
heat rises, so you want to pull in heat from the, or you want to pull in cool air from the front and bottom of the case, and then blow it out the back and the top.
Right. So, same thing. There are fan screws on the outside over here, or fan screw holes. So, just going to take the same fan screws and screw them in.
Alright, so we've got the front fan screwed in, so now we're going to attach the front panel. Much like the top panel, it just clicks into place.
Done.
Alright, so now we are going to put the hard drive cage back in.
Prepare for ungodly noises. Ow.
That wasn't as bad as usual.
It wasn't. Taking it out's a lot worse. I mean... oh well, put it back in. There we go.
Ramble fest.
Okay, so yeah, I'm probably going to ramble on this part because
it's so detailed.
It's so detailed, and you have to just make it up as you go. The fans that we installed on top, these come out over here. What I'm going to do is this back one over here. I plugged it into a converter. It converts a 3-pin fan connector into a Molex, which is really useful. So I'm going to use that Molex now and plug it into the bottom fan, which we already had installed. We would have showed you the installation of that, but that's so tricky in this case. It took me about 30 minutes just to put in that one fan using 2 zip ties.
It was not fun.
No. So these just plug right into each other like Christmas lights, pretty much, if you're familiar with Christmas lights. This isn't really overloading a Molex connector.
Because these fans don't draw that much wattage, and Molex can pull quite a bit of voltage, or wattage.
Wattage, voltage. Same thing. Not really.
Not really.
Not at all. But power. They'll draw as much power. But what you want to do is just plug this right in. There you go. Now those fans, this one, or this one, the bottom one, and this one. Yeah, this back one. So those 3 are now in. This one I'll show you later. Everything from the back we're going to do is the hard drives, and then we'll feed another up here. What you're going to need is SATA power, and you need to make sure that they can fold like that. You can do that pretty well. And this goes into the larger fold right here. Goes into the bigger one. The smaller one next to it is for data.
Make sure you look for the L on the connector and on both sides, so you know which way to put it in.
I didn't even check for that. Oh, where's your problem? Okay. So that just plugs in, and then the other one just goes right in.
And you can't always do it, but sometimes in different cases you can tuck this. I was pointing at it. You can just tuck this little part right here between the hard drives, but in this case you can't do it. But sometimes you can do that, and it looks pretty nice like that.
And if you have extras, just
do what we did: zip tie them together. And, well, not zip tie. We use Velcro straps
because those are reusable, very cheap, nice. Okay, this plug.
This is called your 24-pin ATX connector.
So you want to run that straight through here. Let me look real quick. You'll have to look which one is closer to your 24-pin plug on your motherboard. In my case,
no pun intended.
No pun intended. We've said case so many times. In my case, literally, it's this hole, which is the closest. So I'm just going to stick that through for right now. And if you want, I mean, mine has this neat little thing. One of the few positives about this case. You just plug it, maybe, almost. And there we go. Now that's out of the way. Let's see. Take another set of power and move that through this tiny little, there was a tiny little opening. Yes, there's a tiny little opening through here. I'm just going to run that straight through, and that will power our CD drive.
Yes.
So, also while we're back here, where did our SATA cables go?
There, right here.
Right here. Okay. I'm going to be using these SATA 6 gig a second cables. I'm going to plug in the L side, or the 90-degree angle side, into the hard drive, just to make it easier later. Just have both of them in there.
Generally, you want to connect the 90-degree angles on your SATA cables.
Except that wasn't the right cable.
To the hard drive.
This isn't the right cable. This is the right cable. That was a SATA 3 gig a second. They don't always have the white thing. You'll just have to read them. Mine came black and white, so that made it easy. Now, run this. Let's see. Which is closest? This is closest. So I'm just going to run these through this hole for now. Plug them in a little bit. Now, these are nicely sleeved. These are all.
That cop.
These are all of the power button, reset button, just all of your normal things up here. That's what all these tiny little plugs are. We're just going to run these through here for now. We'll fix that in just a little bit.
You want to get everything kind of rough at first, and then you go through with your Velcro straps or zip ties, whatever your method of choice is. Get everything all bundled together to where you can get your side panel back on.
Right. These are USB. They're clearly labeled USB. So you just put those through the same hole. That usually works. There's a lot of guess and check involved in this.
And it's going to be completely different for every case, really.
Completely different.
Like, in some cases, you're not going to have, like, you're not even going to have all this area back here to work with. And you have to, like, get everything in the front and try to keep it out of sight. But if you have a case like that, what I like to do is just, well, yeah, that. Or get everything plugged in and then just tuck everything else you're not using behind your hard drive bay. And that will usually look pretty decent.
Right. Now, this front fan, I'm going to end up plugging this into the motherboard, which is actually pretty cool because you can control it from the thing. So I'm just going to run that through that hole. There's a 3-pin connector through there, so that's pretty useful. Now, for video card, we have these plugs down here. These PCI Express plugs. Is this? No. Here, no. Nope. 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 Where is it? Where is it?
Was that not in your hand?
No, this is CPU power.
It's not 6-pin. That's it.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Huh. I could have sworn I had another. I don't know. Anyway, these are to power your video card. Mine uses every single pin on here. Some of them just use that.
Like my 6870 uses two 6-pins.
So these, gotta look again. Yeah, these can just go through this hole. Right here. That's fine right there. And these are unused. So these you can just
tuck into an unused hard drive gauge.
This is where modular hard drives come in handy because then you don't have extra cables.
Modular hard drives are definitely worth it.
Not hard drives.
No, God. Modular power supplies are definitely worth the money if you can afford them.
Yeah.
Just because they make this part right here so much easier.
Right. Now, remember that hole that we used over here? There's a power thing on the other side of the motherboard. You're going to want to put your CPU power through there so you can plug it in later. So there that goes. And this one also goes through here. That's the other fan up here. And I believe we have everything done.
Don't worry, we're going to clean this up.
We're going to clean it up. It looks really rough now, but we'll bundle everything up with Velcro ties once we make sure we have everything right.
It'll always look terrible at first, and then you go back and you make it look nice. But up front, you'll see that most of this was looking pretty good.
Right. So this big one, this big old honking one.
Yeah, let me get some light in there.
Yeah.
We have the greatest set ever, if I haven't mentioned that already.
Alright, so this just pops right in. It's a lot easier to put in than it is to get out. So that just snaps right in. It's got a little clip on the side. This is video card. The clips usually go down.
Yeah.
This is the 6. And this is the 8. Okay. Now, for audio. This is the front audio up here. This has to stretch really far and go all the way over here. It's not like this in every case.
This case just is awful.
Yeah, and they put the thing way over here. It's just a situation of what the heck was Asus thinking with this motherboard putting that over here. And then also, why did they make it so
this
short?
cable so short?
There's really no way to cable manage this cable. But I believe I have that in. There we go. Now it feels like it's in. So, right here, these two are your hard drives.
There's gonna be no good way for me to get this in the shot, but
No, they're under here. I'm gonna have to pull this one back under.
you can kind of see it right there, that little white and blue spot.
Right, I have to use, I believe it's the gray. Isn't it the gray?
I think we figured out it was the gray. Your blues were 3s.
Yeah. So, you'll have to read your manual and see which one it is.
Because every motherboard is different.
Alright, now here's a USB header. Or is that a header? Yeah. What's that? What's it called? No, the USB
it's called unplug. The thing on the
plug.
motherboard's the header.
Right. So those just plug right into these blue things. It doesn't really matter which ones you use. There's 3 back here, in case only, or 4. Yeah, there's 4. And so you just plug those in. It looks just fine. Now, for the front panel thing. My motherboard, in order for it to work, this also makes it a whole lot easier. It came with this little white thing here, which is labeled. So I'm just going to put this on here. Here's power LED positive. So.
And remember, your black is always going to be negative.
Yes. Power LED positive? No. Power LED negative. That's actually white. This case is all sorts of screwy. Power switch. So, gonna make sure that the text is always facing the same way. Hard drive LED, which goes right here. Reset switch, which is right here. Now, then there's also case speaker, which is really good for diagnostics. I would actually recommend doing that.
Some cases, some motherboards though are going to have a debug LED. So if you have a debug LED, there's not really a whole lot of reason to put in a case speaker. I mean, unless you just want
to. Using a abnormally long case speaker, yours is probably just for example. But that just plugs in, just like the other, and it's just a tiny little dot thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can do that. I'm not going to. So. That plugs into this little slot down here, and it just goes right on. That's all it takes. And now the front switches will work. So,
another thing you typically want to try to do, I can't remember if we ever got it on this case, but that little bundle of extra wires coming off of the front panel audio, usually you can try to tack it onto the motherboard, which I think we did last time, but it didn't want to fit.
Right. We tried to, but that just tested.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what you do with the other one, just try to get it out of sight so it'll look nicer.
Yeah. So, what else is there? Oh!
The CPU power.
CPU power, right. Way up here. Remember this tiny little hidey hole we have? Did it come through? Yeah, it came through. It's way back here. If you have big hands, this is going to be difficult. If you're like me and have tiny little elf hands, it's still going to be pretty difficult.
See, that's part of why he's the main person doing these videos, because I have way too much trouble doing some of this stuff.
Because you can palm a basketball.
Like, typically my hand can't even fit where his is right now.
No. Oh, there it is. Okay, so I've got these through, and you just want to plug that in to the plug back there. This is hard to see, so hey, I guess that's a good thing though, because
it's hard to see.
It's hard to see. But this is going to take some arguing and a few foul words. I put that in backwards.
Nice.
Barnacles. Yes, I'm using SpongeBob swear words. Swear words. Curse words. What do you want to say? Swear, curse, cuss. I'm so rambly.
Well, I mean, I can't believe I kind of got the light in your face.
Yeah. I'm doing this blindly, just by feel. I was gonna make a Stevie Wonder joke, but that would be in poor taste. God, I still put that in the wrong place, didn't I?
CPU pin or CPU power connectors are usually kind of hard to get because they're in a weird spot in your case.
Such a weird spot.
So you don't have much.
There it goes.
So you're not gonna have much room to move your hand around. But
right, it's in.
That's it right there.
That's it. Just a tiny little cord. But without that, your computer will not turn on.
Nope.
Now, I'm gonna plug in this top fan up here. There's a 3-pin port.
Sorry.
Up here. Done. Fan installed.
Whenever you're plugging in a 3-pin connector, there's like a little tab on the connector itself. Just line that up with the little groove in the male part of the plug.
Actually, that's not where that goes. That's where the other fan goes, because this is a shorter cable. I'll have to put it back yonder. I think we had to do something special with this one. Yeah, there we go. This one goes way down here. Oh, I accidentally unplugged that part. You're gonna run into that occasionally. This likes to pop out. But it just plugs right back in if you have this little white thing. Okay, so where did that other part go? Here it is. So that does actually go in there. I was wrong. No, we have it. Now we got it. Okay. Now, the CD drive.
This part's always kind of hard to cable manage, so you gotta get kind of creative with it.
Yes.
Generally what you want to do is get your connector out through that little hole we used earlier to tuck the front panel connectors through. Then just pull it around the back of the motherboard and out the hole where you put your video card and power through.
And boop. We're in. Now for power. If you remember, we put a set of power up here, but that won't work because it's not long enough. So,
Awkward.
You still have to be creative. This will work. Set this upside down.
Almost fell over.
Okay. It's in. Now, to make the other side look better.
Yes.
And now we will make the back look a little nicer, even though you won't be seeing it.
You won't see it, but just getting everything all nice and bundled together will make putting your side panel on a little bit easier. And keep your cables from jostling around or whatever. You can get much fancier with it than we are right now, and we frequently do, but since it's just a tutorial video and we're in kind of a hurry, we're just going to give you a quick gist of it.
So for little bundles like this, you can just fold things up, wrap a quick tie around it.
And if you can, try to tuck any Molex connectors in that little space between the motherboard tray and the lip of the case.
Right. It's usually like that in every case, but
you don't always have enough space for it, but you usually will.
Right. In ours, we do.
Yes.
And that will hold everything in place. Very nice. Okay. This back right here, even though it looks bad, there's really not much you can do with it.
Yeah, because that's our nest of unused cables. That's another reason we really advocate modular power supplies, because they make this whole process so much nicer.
Okay. So now we can what?
Right, that's right there.
Oh, right there?
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to get out any lumps like that, because Those are the main thing you're worried about in this case. We've got to come up with another way of saying that.
Yeah. We should use the word enclosure.
In this situation.
In this situation. So we'll use situation and enclosure. But it's too late now, so pretty much done.
Yeah.
That looks to be done.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Not the best, but
Not
it's
the
good.
best, but it's good.
Just said that. Anyway, now to put on the side panels, and the beast is done. So, this back panel always has a problem.
Because, as we pointed out repeatedly, this case not made very well.
No. Even without these cables back here, you're going to struggle a little because it's going to be like a can of biscuits, pretty much.
Yeah.
Because there's just so much pressure.
From all the cables pushing out on it. That's why we do manage, or that's why we tie them all together like we do, just to minimize that.
So, these are pretty much the only screws with the case, or the back panel screws. The front panel came with screws, but I don't put them on because the latch on it works really well.
Yeah.
It's actually snapped on really good this time.
Yeah, I was surprised. Normally we have to like fight with that thing for 5 or 10
more
minutes to get
often,
it
then
in.
maybe it'll close. So, there she is, fully cable managed. There we are.
One assembled gaming computer.
Or Cynthia, as we like to call her.
Yes, we like to name all of our
We named
computers.
them all. His is Lucy. This is Cynthia. Then we've also built Margaret, or Magret.
We have another one we named Rihanna.
We have Rihanna, because the case is black and blue. What should we name Bryce's? We should name that one Chris Brown, because it beats the crap out of Rihanna. He's got a 2600K and 6970.
We should.
We should do that. It's a little offensive, but
Yeah.
so is Chris Brown. So, there we have it. Custom built computer.
So stay tuned for more.
Tech videos, because we do a lot more than just reviews now.
Yeah.